Or two is fine.
Right. I meant about the Duke Center for Firearms Law professor. That would.
No, I didn't. I was at another meeting, so I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
I thought you were referring to the one for us to meet. Will you send me a Zoom invite, or Peggy do that
Yeah, I can do it.
from Monday?
Just so you know.
Okay, we're live. Our next witness is Lieutenant Grande from the Bennington Police Department. Lieutenant, thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Good morning. I just want to thank everybody for providing me the opportunity to speak with you about what we're experiencing here in Bennington and the support of S4. My name is Camilo Grande. I'm a lieutenant here with the Bennington Police Department. I would like to say that Chief Doucette sends his apologies for not being able to attend today. I know that he really wanted to be here, but unfortunately he hasn't able to make it. A little bit about me. I'm a lifelong resident of Bennington. I lived here all my life. Have a family, raised a family here. I started my career in law enforcement in 1993 and have been with the Bennington Police Department since 1998. I have approximately 30 years of law enforcement experience. And during those years, I've seen a lot of violent acts. But never have I seen the level of violence that we're experiencing here in Bennington on a regular basis as we did in 2022. 2022, Bennington Police, we responded to 19 shootings, 2 of which involved homicides. Persons, some of the challenges that we're experiencing are we have individuals or persons coming to Bennington from outside the state of Vermont in their late teenage years, and they come to Bennington to sell drugs and often carrying firearms. They come to Bennington and as previously stated by other witnesses, is that they set up quickly within an individual's residence and begin business. And this happens very quickly, and they last in the community for a short period of time before they move on to the next area, the next location within our community. We often build long investigative cases against some of these individuals, being youthful offenders in that 17, 18, 19 years age. And unfortunately, when we are successful in some of our cases and make arrests, the problem is that the state of Vermont doesn't have a facility to send them. When we identify this age group carrying a large amount of narcotics as well as firearms, we constantly work closely with the Bennington County State's Attorney's Office. We are often seeing these individuals released back into the community to a family member. Some of them, most of them return to their home state, but eventually end up back here in Bennington, starting their business again. As you can imagine, the Bennington Police, like most police departments in the state of Vermont, are dealing with critical staffing issues. And these type of cases take up a lot of resources. And we often struggle with trying to determine and how we're going to navigate through the judicial system with these individuals. We spend a lot of time with the state attorney's office on how we're going to proceed with these 17, 18, and 19-year-olds who are charged with trafficking and in possession of firearm. And again, often the case is they're released right back into the community to start up business. We receive a lot of criticism from the community when this happens. It's, our support for S4 will help with these type of these cases. I do have a short presentation that I'd like to start, PowerPoint presentation, short 13 slides to give you a kind of idea of what we're dealing with here in Bennington. Just give me a second.
Feel free to go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So these are just some of the cases highlighted that we are dealing with, that we've dealt with in Bennington in 2022. You can see, without going through each individual one, the number in the parentheses next to the incident is the number of shots that were fired during the incident. Other violence that we're seeing, not just gun violence. We have two stabbings that were related to individuals from outside our community, and the drug during a drug transaction. This is just one example of a 19-year-old gentleman. All the information that you're seeing here has been is nothing that's not sensitive. This is all stuff that has been released and already in court. This gentleman, Mr. Santiago, as you can see, this is just was arrested, and these were the items during the course of the search warrant. 10 days after he was released here in Vermont, he ended up kidnapping a female in Springfield, Massachusetts, pointed a firearm at responding officers, which resulted in a shooting in Springfield, Massachusetts. Again, another member of the O Block gang that from the Springfield, Massachusetts area, who is currently in our community, and also has violence with firearms and other methods by intimidation, human trafficking, where she poured bleach on a person's, one of her customers' deceased relatives' ashes for an unpaid drug debt. Mr. Gonzalez has a lot of history here with Bennington. She also too is from outside the state of Vermont. As you can see, without me reading every single one of those, we had a lot of interaction with Ms. Gonzalez. February, March, some kidnapping, and as well as during an attempted arrest of her, try to disarm an HSI special agent, and involved an arrest that Bennington police officers were trying to effect at the time, and also known as the O Block gang, street gang. Juvenile, who had ties with Bennington, was living in Bennington from outside of the state of Vermont, was involved in some shootings down in the jurisdiction just to the south of us, and then eventually was a homicide victim in Danby, Vermont, which is just to the north of us. Christopher Arreo Cruz, 18 years old, witnessed that he was part of the 546 Main Street shooting, and I'm going to get into that 546 Main Street shooting here in a little bit. But these are just things that we're dealing with on a daily basis. In August of 22, during a search warrant, possession of a defaced firearm thrown outside the window. I was part of that search warrant. In that search warrant, there was 2 firearms recovered, a lot of narcotics, and as well as a young female that was located inside the living room, the common room, on a couch, under a blanket, completely naked. We worked with our human trafficking case manager, as well as Katie Newell, and a person out of Rutland, an attempt to work with her. We had several individuals here in custody at the time, and they and this female was one of them. And we were able to, she was deathly scared of the individuals that were set up in the house from outside the state of Vermont. One 17-year-old that I dealt with myself as I was walking him out of the apartment complex, out of the apartment, told me that there was nothing that we could do to him because he was 17 years old. These individuals know this. They know our laws. They're very, very well organized. They're sent here for a purpose in that age group because they know our laws and they know how difficult it is to lodge these type of cases. We are able to use our local rescue squad personnel to come in and remove the female that we strongly believe was being sex trafficked, and under the guise that she was injured, and immediately got her to a medical facility where the human trafficking case manager could start providing her with services and get her the assistance that she clearly needed. Within a short time of this search warrant, Mr. Roy Cruz was arrested again with a firearm in Massachusetts shortly after being released here in Vermont. Adrian Torres, again, 18 years old. This is that's Mr. Torres on the roof that you see there. This was another apartment house, 3 or 4 apartments in this house, where they set up what we refer to as a trap house, and utilized the female tenant who is also dealing with addiction, and provided her with narcotics in order for them to use her apartment and sell their narcotics. We got a lot of complaints from neighbors on this, a lot of complaints from the actual tenants of the building. We started our investigation, which eventually led to the arrest, search warrant, and the information that you see within the slide. And Miguel Perez Argamante, 18 years old. He and his 2 friends here, as you can see, all 3 of them have firearms and a large amount of money. This was another search warrant that we did. This is something that they posted on social media. Our detectives were able to retrieve this during their investigation. And during all 3 of them were arrested as a result of a search warrant. Actually, several search warrants. All 3 of those firearms were recovered by Bennington police officers, and they are now in our evidence room. And as this room that you're seeing is an apartment in our downtown district that was being used as, again, a trap house, and the tenant there knew exactly what was taking place every day out of his apartment. He was basically the manager without really being the manager. Property owner, lives out of the state of Vermont. Multiple complaints to the property owner about the activity that took place at this location. This 546 Main Street was a location where there was a drive-by shooting late at night into the apartment house, multiple rounds into the front of the building. Fortunately, nobody was injured. This location was a result of 3 separate search warrants. And the final search warrant that we were able to execute there, these were the individuals that we were able to identify. Again, this just goes more along, with the age that bracket that we're seeing. individuals. Mr. Morgan was part of that search warrant, and had the AR style rifle that you saw in the previous picture in the trunk of his car. He refused to cooperate, and we had to eventually end up getting a search warrant for that vehicle and obtain that firearm. That was now the second firearm that we have recovered that the serial number has been defaced. And this is just an example of the firearm. The picture you can see that the picture on the left is the AR-15 style firearm with the serial number defaced, and on the right is the second one where it has actually been also defaced. Both of these firearms these are firearms that we are seeing, that we recovered. This is not something that we took off the internet. And then the final slide involves the victim of the homicide in Danby, Vermont. As you can go through the bullet points without me actually reading every single one of those bullet points. Heavily involved in some of the violence that we were seeing here, that we're experiencing here in Bennington, and the drug activity that we are dealing with on a daily basis. Does anybody have any questions about the slides before I stop the share?
Thank you.
So again, you know, we are in support of S4. We are, you know, having a 19 shootings with 2 homicides. And all those shootings that you were seeing, a lot of them are down in our downtown area, and residents within the walking distance of the downtown area. We are already in the first 2 weeks of 2023, and we have already have our first shooting recorded. Yes.
If I might, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Quick question about in the bill under defacing a firearm serial number, it has the word knowingly. A person shall not knowingly possess a firearm with a defaced serial number. In the image that you showed of the AR style weapon with the defaced serial number, there was a different colored epoxy or something. But the other one, it was a little hard to tell, but it looked as though it was not discolored, it was just scratched off. So I'm just wondering how secure we would be in the idea that these people know that the serial number, could we prove that they know that the serial number is defaced?
I think for law enforcement, that would be part of our investigative process. You know, during, you know, if the individual decides to speak to law enforcement, you know, that would be one thing that our investigators would discuss with the individual that was found in possession of that firearm with that defaced serial number. But without, you know, that individual speaking with us, it would be difficult to determine.
Because I'm wondering if known or should have known is something we should think about, because it's hard for me to believe that a person of the sort we're talking about, somebody who's going to use the weapon in the commission of multiple felonies, wouldn't be aware, or you could seemingly prove that they should have been aware that it was defaced. But I imagine that they're not going to just admit, yes, we knew that it was defaced, or we defaced it. Anyway, I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
I wonder if you could speak, Cam, a little to the relationship with the federal law enforcement officials.
Yeah,
Um,
so,
Because there's several areas of this bill that copy federal law, like the deface serial numbers, the straw purchases, some of the other elements of it, so that you don't have to have a federal prosecution for these cases. But can you speak a little bit about the relationship and
yeah,
cases where they haven't taken over?
yeah, so, the state of Vermont needs to mirror the federal laws when it comes to firearms, so that we in local law enforcement can make these cases when we have them and charge them state, and state charges. Because sometimes when we bring cases to the ATF or our federal entities, they just don't take them, so we need to be able to bring those charges on a state level, so we can proceed with some type of criminal charge when we have these individuals coming into our community with firearms and narcotics, and sometimes we don't always just see the violence. We develop a case, and the violence for that particular individual may not be able, for something that we're able to bring a case on right now, but we have the gun and drug charges from as a result of a search warrant, and we should be able to bring those charges when an individual is in possession of firearms defaced, and not rely on our federal partners.
How much straw purchasing are you seeing?
So we're experiencing a lot of individuals who are going in, who are able to purchase a firearm in a licensed establishment, and we see the individual go. We know the individual goes into the store, attempts to make the purchase, and there's several individuals waiting in the car. We have a couple of business owners in our area that they have great surveillance, and what they'll see is that a person will come in, they'll look at a firearm, they'll go back to the car, they'll have what appears to be a conversation with the individuals in the car, and they go back and they try to purchase the firearm. But thankfully, we have some the business owners are in tune to this, and they deny the purchase. But sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes you see that, and we see firearms being traded for narcotics. I am aware of several cases where firearms purchased here in Bennington County by Bennington residents, and they end up involved in acts of violence in the Holyoke, Massachusetts area, Springfield area. Either they're recovered during a search warrant, or they're involved in some type of violent act.
Thank you. Other questions for Lieutenant Grande? Cam, good to see you as always.
You as well. Just want to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I want to thank everybody for the work that you're all doing to keep Vermont safe. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for the work the Bennington Police Department is doing under your and Paul Doucette's leadership on these difficult issues.
Thank you.
We do appreciate it. And whether it doesn't seem like we do or don't, we do. And I know many members of the community appreciate what you're trying to do.
Thank you, Senator.
Stu Hurd is our next witness. Stu is the longtime town manager of Bennington. I won't say how long, because that would date both of us.
Well, thank you, Senator, and thank you all for allowing us to visit with you this morning. I will date us both, Dick. I have been town manager here for just over 30 years. Dick Sears was the chair of the select board that appointed me. So we do go back a ways. And I can tell you from my perspective, this is really an emotional situation for me. I've lived in Bennington for over 50 years, or close to 50 years now, coming up on my 50th anniversary. I've never seen anything like this. The drug trade today that we're seeing, that is being brought to us from other states, is extremely violent, extremely deadly. Not only the drugs that they sell, but the way they go about their business. And I disagree with some of what Erica Martha said this morning about these young individuals who are here in town performing the sales, the threats, the shootings. They're unfortunately, they have grown up with this in their time, and maybe it is brought to them by others in their families, but they are willing participants when they come to Vermont. And they are violent. They're extremely ruthless. They have no fear of retribution from our legal system at the present time. And they have no sense of the human condition. They brutalize the people that they live with, whose properties they take over, and they do it without compunction. And it is one of the reasons that I support S4. I think we need to send a message to those who are not from Vermont, that are coming into Vermont, that there is going to be some sort of criminal violation for what these folks are doing. They know the laws. Cam is correct. The people who send them here know the laws. They are well organized. When they are captured and released, they leave the state only to be replaced by others of their age and of the same condition. So I think when Cam talked about some of the things he's seen, and we look to the section of this law that deals with the reckless landlords, 715 Main Street, we had 3 search warrants conducted, and that's one apartment in this building right here in the downtown. Same owner or same renter of the apartment was involved in all 3. He was allowing his property to be used. The landlord, who is not a Bennington resident, claimed not to know what was going on, but that was where one of the shootings occurred, where some 20 rounds were fired into the building. And this landlord has relatives in Bennington, so it's hard for me to believe that he didn't understand what was happening at his property. And I consider his ownership to be reckless. He did nothing. One of the other shootings that the lieutenant talked about, where some 20 rounds were fired, the next day, the owner of that property began an action to remove that tenant from his property. That's the kind of thing that we want to see. And we hope that this kind of a statute will enforce. I'm not going to speak to whether the $100,000 fine is legitimate or whether it should be something less, but somehow, some way, the state of Vermont has to get the word out that these kinds of acts will not be tolerated, and that we can all go back to living in what would be considered a wonderfully safe town and a wonderfully safe state. We are constantly ranked at the top as one of the safest states to live in. But what's happening over the last couple of years has been quite terrifying. And it's terrifying for members of our community, including the marginalized members of our community, the people who are living in these neighborhoods who are not involved in the drug activity, but yet are subject to the violence and the threats and everything around it. So I would encourage folks, the Senate and the House, to consider seriously the aspects of this bill that we can push it forward that we can send the appropriate message to these folks that we don't need this in our communities, and we certainly don't want it in the state of Vermont. And it is not just Bennington. I read Digger. I read other newspapers. I know that Springfield is having the same problems we're having. I know that Burlington is facing the same problems we're facing. So it's throughout the state, and I would encourage us to do something about it. And I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Stu, I guess one of the questions is, in terms of long-term, and we've seen this, didn't start all of a sudden. We've had gang activity in Bennington for years. Can you speak a little bit to the grant program and how, if you see that as something that the town of Bennington could take advantage of, or
I can.
$10 million.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Senator Sears is correct. Yes. Have gangs been acting out in Vermont and in Bennington prior to the last 2 years? Yes, they have. We've always had a very stern approach to gang activity here through our police department, and we monitor them very carefully. We let them know that they're on our radar, but nothing like the violence that are associated with these recent events has ever taken place. And the part of this law that creates a fund for communities to use, I think is extremely important. Resources of any kind, resources that deal with drug addiction, resources that deal with mental health issues that arise out of some of these things are incredibly hard to find. They're also extremely expensive. So any financial help the state can provide to communities, I think, is really welcome. I don't know whether you've all been aware, but Bennington is finally going to have a hub, a drug treatment facility here that will be able to deal with methadone, a licensed facility. It's something we've long lacked because we didn't have that. Our addicts were being transported to Rutland, to Brattleboro, to North Adams. So you spend an entire day on a bus going to and from your treatment. You can't hold down a job. You can't be productive. So the hub coming to Bennington is really, really good news. And funds like this, I think, will provide just that extra incentive that will allow communities to take that next step.
Other questions for Stu? Comments?
I'm really glad to hear that there is a hub coming to Bennington. It sounds like it's greatly needed to invest in the community supports to address the substance use disorder driving the demand for illicit narcotics. I have a couple questions and a comment. My first comment is I really want to be thoughtful about how we talk about our criminal justice system. It's my belief that it should be grounded in rehabilitation, not retribution, and that we really do need to be thinking about community resources. So I want to just be careful about the language that we use because I think it's important. For the lieutenant, are we working with the FBI on this? I mean, this strikes me as cross-state gun and drug trafficking, which should not only be on your hands.
So we work very closely with Homeland Security Investigations. We actually have a agent embedded in our department, works here all the time. And we have two detectives that also have been deputized through HSI. So they can continue their investigations. As you know, most of our investigations are going across to Massachusetts. So they both have been deputized. We're also, seeing issues with not only Massachusetts, but we now have an influx of individuals coming up from New York City. And our huge concern now is that these two New York City and Springfield are going to start battling here within our community. So yes, we work very, very closely with HSI, a little bit with ATF, but really not too much with the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Okay, thank you. I have to be honest, I don't really know what the procedure is for dealing with cross-state trafficking like that. So I just assumed it would be the FBI. My other question is what exploration has been done to provide these children who are involved in gang activity, the community supports they need to be able to exit and get what they are needing, their needs met. I mean, these are 16, 17, 18-year-old children. People don't join gangs because everything's going well in their life.
Yeah, I can't speak for what happens to them when they're at home. I do know that I personally have spoken to, on one case, to the Massachusetts Department of Children and Families on one individual to make sure that when they went back home, that they were going to be cared for in a proper way. But I just can't speak for what happens to these individuals when they return to their home state.
Got it. And so there's nothing in the Bennington community that would help support these people in sort of exiting that gang activity, largely because they're based out of Massachusetts, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, they don't stay here. They the town manager said, they come up, they set up shop, and they rotate right back to Massachusetts. If we end up making an arrest, some of them, most of them go back to Massachusetts, and they will end up back here, dealing right back to what they're dealing, and they go right back to Massachusetts. There really isn't that opportunity for them to be involved or want to be involved in any type of outreach here in Bennington.
Understood. And then my last question is, the Department of Justice has a youth gang program. Have you been, the U.S. Department of Justice, have you been in touch with them at all?
No, I have
Okay.
not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I say that I agree with you. I think in order to deal with the problem of drug use and abuse, we need to eliminate the market. And that's where the hub, I think, comes in. If we can get our Bennington residents to reduce the use and consumption of these drugs, we can then have these gang related activities probably move elsewhere. So I think the hub is a key. I think it would be great if we had a way to offer services to some of these young adults, but I'm not certain, given the length of time they've probably been in this activity, that we could actually reach them in the time that we have them here.
I was just going to add that my knowledge of the Bennington area is that the availability of treatment is limited, not just for methadone, but for other mental health and other issues. That the systems are stretched as far as they can go. And I think, that is part of the problem that we need to work on. I totally agree with the town manager that reducing demand should be the number one priority. But in the meantime, we're stuck with some of this violent behavior that is really untenable. And I think one of the things that was mentioned that we need to also keep an eye on, since it's in our bailiwick, is a secure facility for some of the more violent offenders, youthful offenders, which we don't have since the closure of Woodside. And I think that is also contributing to this. And I'm glad that the administration is working on some plan. They did report to Justice Oversight in late December. So we hope we will see something, a modular type going up soon. Are there any other comments, questions before we adjourn for the day?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, thank you all very much. We'll see you on Tuesday.